The headline, Royal Emergency, Palace confirms shocking update about King Charles, public in total shock, is a blank canvas. The shocking update is the variable. To craft a meaningful narrative, we must choose an update that is not just personally dramatic for the king, but one that has profound constitutional, political, and societal ramifications. We will move from the shocking announcement itself, through its immediate fallout, to a deep examination of its historical precedents, its constitutional implications, and its long-term impact on the very fabric of the monarchy. Here is a detailed chapter-by-chapter rewrite and expansion. The image of the British monarchy is one of timeless stability, a golden thread of continuity in the tapestry of a nation's history. It is built on ritual, tradition, and an unspoken contract of duty above all else. On a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning, that image shattered. The news did not break via a leak or a tabloid scoop, but through the most formal of channels. A communiqué from Buckingham Palace, its language strained, its tone unnervingly direct. It read, "The palace confirms today that His Majesty the King, after deep and prolonged reflection, has communicated to the Prime Minister and the relevant authorities his decision to formally abdicate the throne, with the succession to pass immediately to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. The King will henceforth be known as the Duke of Cornwall and intends to retire from public life. A period of national reflection is requested. A full statement will be issued in due course." In a mere 65 words, the foundation of the British Constitution trembled. There was no mention of ill health, no council of regency, the mechanism for a reigning but incapacitated monarch. This was a voluntary, conscious, and unprecedented step in the modern era. The public, the media, and the political establishment were, as the original headline promised, in total shock. This was not a royal crisis, it was a constitutional earthquake. The mechanics of the shockwave detail the precise moment the announcement was made, the silence in newsrooms before the frantic scramble, the interruption of scheduled programming, the crash of the BBC website, the first stunned reactions from broadcasters struggling to find the right words for an event without precedent in their lifetimes. The language of abdication. Analyze the palace's statement word by word. Deep and prolonged reflection suggests a philosophical or personal crisis, not a medical one. Abdicate, a word loaded with the ghost of 1936 and Edward VIII, a word deliberately avoided for nearly a century. Succession to pass immediately indicates a desire for a clean, irrevocable break. Retire from public life is perhaps the most radical phrase of all. For a monarch, duty is for life. The global reaction, from the gleeful coverage on certain international networks to the bewildered statements from Commonwealth leaders whose own head of state had just resigned. The quiet, urgent calls between the White House, the Elysee Palace, and other world capitals as they grappled with the geopolitical implications of such a profound shift in a key ally. No understanding of this event is possible without revisiting the last abdication, the wound in the monarchy that never fully healed. The 1936 precedent. A detailed recounting of the Edward VIII crisis. The conflict between his desire to marry Wallis Simpson, a twice-divorced American, and his role as Supreme Governor of the Church of England, which forbade remarriage after divorce. The political intransigence of Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin. The global scandal. Edward's abdication was forced by external pressure. Charles's appears to be a choice from within. Edward's was driven by personal passion. Charles's, by the statement's account, by reflection. Edward's act was seen as selfish and derelict of duty. The framing of Charles's act will be the central battlefield of public opinion. This chapter explores how the memory of 1936 has shaped every modern monarch's approach to duty and how Charles, of all people, steeped in tradition and history, chose to walk the same path, but for seemingly inverted reasons. This is the core mystery. Why would a man who waited 7 decades for the throne, who has famously prepared for it his entire life, voluntarily relinquish it after such a short reign? The weight of the crown. Examine the immense pressure of becoming monarch at an advanced age, the relentless schedule, the global scrutiny, the burden of following a mother who was a global icon of stability, the psychological toll of having one's entire identity subsumed into an institution at the age of 73. A clash of visions. Charles III was never going to be Elizabeth II. He was an activist Prince of Wales, a meddler with strong public views on architecture, the environment, and alternative medicine. Explore the theory that he found the political neutrality of the sovereign suffocating, that he realized that he could not be the king he wanted to be within the constraints of the Constitution. His abdication could be seen as the ultimate act of meddling, a protest against the very nature of the modern monarchy. The personal dimension. Speculation on private factors. Was it a health scare, physical or mental? Not severe enough for a regency, but enough to make the role untenable. Was it a desire for a final few years of genuine peace with his wife, the queen consort, after a lifetime of duty and personal turmoil? This section would balance known facts with respectful, logical inference. The British Constitution is unwritten, a collection of statutes, conventions, and precedents. An abdication tests its very limits. The legal mechanism. Explain the process. The last abdication required His Majesty's Declaration of Abdication Act 1936. This was an act of parliament. Would a new similar act be required? This immediately plunges the king's personal decision into the heart of the political arena, requiring debate and votes in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The role of the Prime Minister. The Palace Statement says the king communicated with the Prime Minister. What was the nature of those discussions? Did the PM advise against it? Attempt to dissuade him? What is the government's constitutional responsibility in managing such a crisis of succession? The Commonwealth question. The king is not just king of the United Kingdom, but of 14 other Commonwealth realms from Canada to Australia. Each of these nations would have to consent to the change of their head of state. This single act could trigger a wave of republicanism across the Commonwealth, as nations are forced to consciously re-ratify the monarchy or consider it the perfect moment to become a republic. The moment Charles abdicated, William became king. This chapter explores the immediate transition. The Accession Council, the ancient ceremony that would be convened, this time under the most extraordinary circumstances. The witnessing of the new king's proclamation. The challenge for William and Catherine. They are now king and queen. They did not have years to prepare for a gradual transition. They are thrust into the spotlight with a wounded institution and a nation in shock. Analyze their strengths, their modern image, their focus on mental health, their young family as potential healing agents, but also their burdens, the immense pressure to save the monarchy, and the complex personal dynamic with a father who has, in effect, dropped the ultimate responsibility in their laps. The public's first glimpse, the first official engagement, the first speech to the nation. How does William V strike the tone? Does he acknowledge the turmoil or project an image of unshakable continuity? Every word will be parsed for meaning. How does the public truly react once the initial shock wears off? The traditionalists versus the modernists. One segment of the population sees this as the ultimate betrayal of duty, a selfish act that undermines the very principle of hereditary service. Another sees it as a surprisingly modern, almost human act of self-awareness, a recognition that no one should be trapped in a role they cannot fulfill. The media narratives, the split in the press, the tabloids that once championed Charles now turning on him, the more serious broadsheets engaging in deep constitutional analysis, the social media firestorm with memes, hot takes, and global commentary creating a cacophony of opinion. Polling data, theoretical, a discussion of what immediate polls might show, a dip in support for the monarchy as an institution, but a potential surge in support for the new, younger king and queen, seen as blameless in the crisis. This final chapter looks forward, assessing the permanent scars and the new landscape. The precedent is set. The sanctity of the job for life is broken. Will this create an expectation that future monarchs may step down in their old age? Has the British monarchy inadvertently moved towards a more managerial, perhaps continental European model? The legacy of Charles III. How will history judge him? As a flawed prince who failed as king? Or as a revolutionary who dared to break the mold, forcing the monarchy to confront its own anachronisms? His legacy is now inextricably tied to his son's success or failure. A resilient or brittle institution. The monarchy has survived civil wars, beheadings, and abdications before. It has evolved. Does this crisis force a necessary and modernizing evolution, making it more relevant for the 21st century? Or does it reveal a fundamental brittleness, an institution that cannot withstand the weight of modern scrutiny and the complexities of modern individuals? The chapter concludes by arguing that the reign of William V will be the ultimate test. He must now rule over a monarchy whose foundational myth of perpetual duty has been shattered, and his great challenge will be to build a new one in its place. A final literary vignette. Picture the former King Charles, now the Duke of Cornwall, walking the grounds of Sandringham, the estate he loved. He is free from the red boxes, the constant scrutiny, the weight of the crown. But he is also isolated, a king without a kingdom, a man who made a choice that will be debated for centuries. The public may have been in total shock, but the deepest, most profound shockwaves are the ones that reverberate through history, changing institutions forever. The golden thread remains, but it is now tied with a different and far more complex knot.